This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain an adventure, comedy, and fantasy film called Black Knight. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Jamal Walker resides near the intersection of Florence and Normandy in south-central Los Angeles and works at a theme park called Medieval World. When he goes to work one day, Jamal learns that a new theme park called Castle World is opening nearby in 2 weeks. The Medieval World owner, Mrs. Bostic, intends to compete with the new theme park, but Jamal advises her to sell her property and retire in Miami. Bostic is disappointed in Jamal because his remark just shattered the high hopes she had in him. While cleaning up a ditch at the entrance, Jamal advises his co-worker, Ernie, to apply at Castle World with him because Medieval World wouldn't stand a chance against the new amusement park. As they play with toy swords, they notice a medallion in the water and surmise that it must be worth some money. Ernie goes inside the park to find something to get the medallion out of the water, but Jamal tries to grab it. As he reaches for the medallion, it suddenly glows and pulls him into the water. Jamal emerges in an unfamiliar lake and encounters a drunk man who introduces himself as Naughty of Marlborough. Jamal thinks that he's an employee at Castle World and he got drunk at their opening party. When Naughty suddenly falls unconscious, Jamal notices that he's not breathing, so he prepares to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. However, he can't stand the smell, so he uses a breath spray on him. Naughty suddenly wakes up and expresses his gratitude to Jamal for saving his life. When Naughty takes him to his camp, Jamal is appalled by his living conditions, so he advises him to get some food stamps and find a homeless shelter. Naughty thanks him for engaging him in a conversation and reveals that people revile him for failing his queen. Jamal leaves him with $2, but Naughty just throws the money into the fire. Jamal tries to make his way to the freeway, but he ends up on a medieval farm and almost gets run over by men on horseback. When he sees a fortress nearby, he tries to go inside to complain about the riders, thinking that he has reached Castle World. The guards stop him, but they decide to let him in when Jamal mentions that he's from Florence and Normandy. Mistaking him for a messenger from Normandy, they tell him that the king has been waiting for his arrival. As he walks around, Jamal sees a puppet show about the legend of the Black Knight. Moments later, his attention is caught by a beautiful chambermaid named Victoria. He immediately flirts with her and asks for her phone number, but Victoria doesn't understand him, so she tells him that she's the 7th chambermaid. Percival, the king's chief henchman, suddenly arrives and touches all the women in his way, including Victoria. Jamal recognizes him as the rider who almost ran him over, so he warns him that he will report him to his boss. Percival pulls out his sword and points it at him, but Jamal scoffs at him, thinking that the weapon is not real. He tells Percival that he's joking about reporting him and notes that he is just trying to get a date with Victoria. Percival gets furious with him, but before the situation gets violent, Philip, the chamberlain, arrives to take Jamal to the king's court. Upon his arrival, King Leo asks Jamal when the Duke will arrive to marry his daughter, Regina. Jamal tells him that the Duke will arrive on Tuesday, thinking he's just playing along with their theatrics. Jamal asks Leo for a ride back to town, so Leo tells him to get some rest so that they can ride the horses later. As Philip is giving Jamal a tour of the castle, they see people going outside to watch the execution of the rebellion leader, so he goes with Philip to witness the event. After the executioner beheads the rebel, Jamal picks up the head to inspect it. He immediately faints after realizing that it's real. Later, Jamal wakes up screaming hysterically in his room while Victoria looks after him. Jamal gets even more agitated when Victoria informs him that it's the year 1328. Jamal wants to leave, but Victoria tells him that he can't go because he has the medallion. Victoria shows him she has the same medallion and notes that she will help him restore the kingdom to the deposed queen by killing Leo. She then takes Jamal to the window to show him the decapitated heads on spikes and notes that it's what Leo does to people who dare oppose him. Jamal attempts to leave the castle, but Philip suddenly arrives to tell him that Leo is waiting to go horseback riding with him. When Leo tells him to get on an untamed horse, Jamal realizes he wouldn't be able to ride it, so he claims that he's also a court jester apart from being the Duke's messenger. Leo and the villagers watch Jamal in amusement as he struggles to ride the horse. After a few minutes, the king eventually gets tired of watching him, but he notes that he has great respect for Jamal because of his dedication. Later that day, Jamal tells Victoria that he has to return to the lake where he found Naughty. Victoria notes that Naughty is dead, but Jamal assures her that he's alive. Suddenly, Philip comes in to invite Jamal to a banquet to celebrate the Duke's upcoming union with his daughter. During the festivities, Leo asks Jamal to show off his dancing skills because he heard the Normans are excellent dancers. After failing to dance to medieval music, Jamal instructs the court musicians to play tunes with modern beats and urges the guests to dance with him. While Jamal and the guests enjoy the music, Victoria signals two servants to follow her and give them a plate with loaves of bread. Soon, Leo gets off his throne and joins the guests in their dance. While the king is not looking, Regina suddenly grabs Jamal and kisses him. Percival sees them kissing and threatens to kill Jamal for touching the princess. Jamal runs to the balcony, but Percival immediately catches up to him. Meanwhile, the two servants approach the king, each carrying a loaf of bread. As soon as they get close to Leo, they pull the knives hidden in the bread. When they are about to stab Leo, Jamal falls from the balcony and swings on a hanging drape. He kicks the king out of the way, preventing the two assassins from stabbing him. The guards immediately catch the assassins, but Leo berates Percival for failing to protect him. Leo appoints Jamal as a lord in charge of his security and awards him 60 hectares of land. One day, Leo notifies Jamal that a man has been caught stealing a turnip from the castle garden. Leo asks him to round up the man's family and prepare them for execution. As the king goes on his way, Jamal pretends to berate the man, but he gives him some coins and tells him to flee. That evening, a guard takes Victoria to Jamal's room as part of his reward for saving the king. While pretending to make love, Jamal tells Victoria about his plans to leave the castle before the real messenger shows up. Victoria points out that he could aid the rebels now that he has more access to the king, but Jamal contends that he's not the man who can help them. In frustration, Victoria walks out of his room and tells him that she'll no longer speak to him. Later that night, a woman enters Jamal's room and gets in bed with him, so Jamal gladly sleeps with her, thinking she's Victoria. The following day, the real messenger arrives to deliver a message from the Duke of Normandy. Upon hearing the message, Leo storms into Jamal's room and finds him in bed with Regina. The messenger tells Leo that the Duke will not be interested in marrying Regina now that she's no longer chaste. In his anger, Leo puts Jamal in a cage for ruining his chances of forming an alliance with Normandy. In the dungeon, the two assassins tell Jamal that they were angry at him for foiling their attempt to kill Leo, but they now think of him as a genius because the rebels will now have the chance to defeat Leo because he failed to unite with Normandy. Jamal is alarmed to learn that they will be executed the next day, but the assassins are grateful that their deaths won't be in vain. The assassins note that they could probably escape death if the Black Knight is around. They stress that the kings have tried to buy his loyalty, but the knight is only devoted to justice. They add that the knight was once swallowed whole by a fierce dragon, but he cut his way out of the beast's belly with a sword of gold. When he emerged, he gained the ability to breathe fire like a dragon. The two men believe that it really happened, but Jamal dismisses it as another myth. On the day of the execution, Jamal claims to be a great sorcerer in a last-ditch attempt to save his life. He tries to scare them with fire from a cigarette lighter, but the villagers are not impressed. As they put his head on the chopping block, the executioner suddenly starts choking on an apple, leading a villager to think that Jamal cast a death spell on him. Jamal performs the Heimlich maneuver on the executioner until he spits out the fruit that's choking him. Afterward, Jamal scares the villagers by claiming that he can make the sun fall from the sky. Coincidentally, a flaming arrow hits the king's tent, so Leo and the princess head back to the castle. As the guards attempt to seize Jamal and the assassins, Victoria arrives on a horse with a cart. The trio gets into the cart, but Jamal falls off as soon as the horse starts running. Percival instructs a guard to shut the gate, but Jamal manages to get out before it can close. As Jamal struggles to avoid arrows from the soldiers, Nalty arrives and takes him up onto his horse. On their way to the rebels' camp, Nalty informs Jamal that he came to save him because Victoria told him about the execution. Upon their arrival, Nalty leaves Jamal behind, noting that he has already paid his debt. Later, Victoria informs Jamal that she came up with a plan to save them from execution, but she had to tell the rebels that she heard the plan from a great warrior so that they would listen to her. When Victoria scolds Jamal for sleeping with the princess, he explains that he only did it because he thought she was Victoria. Jamal promises to take her out of the village and notes that she can end up in a place where smart women can do more than serve the men. However, Victoria stresses that she intends to fight against the king even if they lose. Nalty heads back to his camp, but Percival's men ambush him. Meanwhile, Jamal goes to the lake to return to his own time, but he has second thoughts about leaving without helping the rebels. The men offer Nalty a flask of alcohol, but one of them drops it on a pile of dung. Nalty attempts to pick it up, but Jamal arrives and stops him. Jamal fights the three men using boxing techniques and knocks down two of them. However, the two men eventually get back up and subdue him, so Jamal begs Nalty to get up and help him. As one of the men prepares to hit Jamal, Nalty grabs the assailant's hand and pushes him to the ground. The two men run away after Jamal beats them up. Nalty only lets their friend go after pushing his face against a pile of dung. Soon, Nalty and Jamal return to the camp, but they soon find out that Percival's men have already razed it. A rebel informs Jamal that Percival's patrol found them, and the only men who survived are those who were away from the camp during the attack. Jamal searches for Victoria, but a rebel notes that Percival's men took her. Jamal asks the rebel to help him rescue Victoria, but only Naughty volunteers to come with him. A moment later, the queen arrives and notes that the men might be willing to fight for her. Naughty asks the queen for forgiveness for abandoning her, but she notes that she's grateful that he lived to fight another day. Jamal convinces the queen to give an inspiring speech to the rebels, but he ends up doing it when she fails to rile them up. Jamal manages to motivate the rebels with a few lines borrowed from modern speeches. Soon, Jamal trains the rebels to fight with the techniques he learned from American football and pro wrestling. The night before they storm the castle, Jamal gives Naughty a pair of rubber shoes to make it easier for him to move around in battle. In return, Naughty gives Jamal a knight's armor and tells him that he can be a knight just like him if he chooses. When Jamal can't fall asleep, he decides to modify his armor for the rest of the night. The next day, the rebels attack the castle, but they don't find anyone guarding the gates. Moments later, Percival and the soldiers surround them. As the soldiers begin to slaughter the rebels, the Black Knight arrives, terrifying the infantry outside the fortress. Upon reaching the gates, the Black Knight shoots fire from his helmet to intimidate their enemies. However, Percival discovers that it's Jamal behind the armor when he falls off his horse and loses his helmet. Percival attempts to cut off Jamal's head, but Naughty reaches Jamal in time to save him. As Percival and Naughty are locked in a sword fight, Jamal helps the other rebels defeat the soldiers with the tactics they learned during training. Percival retreats to the top of the castle walls as the rebels start to gain the upper hand. Leo urges Percival to get him to safety, but Percival gets exasperated with him and throws him to the ditch outside the fortress. Jamal sees Naughty knocking out a soldier using the boxing technique he taught him days earlier. As Jamal commends him, Percival shoots Naughty with an arrow and hits him in the chest. Naughty grows weak, so he gives his sword to Jamal and tells him that he is honored to fight alongside him. Soon, Jamal heads to the top of the wall to confront Percival, but Percival holds Victoria hostage and tells Jamal to drop his sword. As Jamal prepares to put down his sword, Victoria breaks free from Percival's grip, but she gets a cut on her neck. Percival easily disarms him, but Jamal tackles him to the ground. Jamal almost falls over the wall when Percival kicks him, but he manages to hang on. After Jamal retrieves his sword, he strikes Percival thrice at full force, causing him to drop to the ground. As Jamal unties Victoria's hands, Percival gets up and tries to attack him, but Percival gets shot by an arrow from the ground. When Percival turns around, he sees Naughty holding a longbow. Jamal yells out Naughty's name in delight upon discovering that he's still alive. Soon, the rebels cheer when they realize that they have taken the castle. Days later, Jamal convinces Victoria to come with him back to his time. The queen asks Jamal to stay, but he notes that he has his own battles to fight. Before they leave, the queen dubs Jamal as the Black Knight for his part in taking back the crown. As they're about to finish the ceremony, Jamal wakes up back in his time, surrounded by his co-workers and medics. After the medics leave, Ernie informs him that he was under the water for about 10 minutes. Jamal immediately asks him about Victoria, but Ernie has no idea who she is. Ernie notes that Jamal can sue the owner because the accident happened at work, but Jamal argues that there's no honor in doing that. Soon, Bostic comes out and warns Jamal that suing her for money wouldn't work because she has already decided to quit running the theme park. Jamal, however, convinces her not to quit and help her improve Medieval World to compete with Castle World. While Jamal is assisting a teenage boy at the baseball batting cage one day, he hears a familiar voice cheering on the teenager. Nicole, who looks just like Victoria, thanks Jamal for helping the boy and notes that it's her nephew's first time hitting the ball. After introductions, Jamal invites Nicole to have lunch with him sometime. As Nicole and her nephew leave the theme park, Jamal realizes that he never got her number, so he runs after her. However, he falls into the ditch upon reaching the entrance. When he gets up, Jamal finds himself inside a Roman Colosseum with thousands of cheering spectators. Jamal immediately runs as soon as 3 lions come out of their dens to chase after him.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.